Jayanila Premadana Karuna Pracho Jayanila Premadana Karuna Pracho Hena Prabhu Kotagela Acharya Thakur Kahamara Sarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Dasa Raghunata Patita Pavan Kahamara Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kale Kota Kela Goranata Ashane Katiba Mata Annale Pashiva Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kotogere Pabam Se Sapa Sangira Sange Ye Koilo Vilas Se Sangha Napaya Kande Naratamadas Jayanila Premadana Karuna Pracho Hena Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur. Okay, read the translation. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where are my Sarup, Damodar, and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta, and where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So today is the disappearance of Srila Madhvacharya. So I'll just read something about him. And then afterwards, if devotees want to add anything in relation to Madhvacharya, and then we could read the Bhagavatam. Sri Madhvacharya appeared in, this is from the famous Samadhi's book. Sri Madhvacharya appeared in 1238 AD near Udupi, Karnataka in South India. He was considered an incarnation of Vayu, wind god. He had an unusually strong physique and extraordinary intellectual power. Once, a fierce Bengali tiger attacked Madhvacharya's sannyas disciple, Satyatirtha. Madhvacharya wrestled the tiger and sent him away with his tail between his legs. Madhvacharya took Diksha at the age of 5. Sannyas at 12. Pretty young sannyasi there, 12 years old. Yeah, small danda. Yeah, I think Tirthamar was just telling me that. Yeah, they take sannyas when they're so young, the danda's small, so then when they grow, they have this small danda. Maybe probably get bigger danda, but. Sannyas at 12 and left home. He appeared with a mission to fight and defeat Shankar's Mayavad and personal philosophy. By giving a pure interpretation of Vedanta Sutra, he promoted pure theism. He named his innovative Shastric explanation Dvaita Dvaitavad, pure dualism. After Shankaracharya, who had previously toured India spreading impersonalism, Madhvacharya also traveled the length and breadth of India, preaching personal theism and devotion to Lord Vishnu. He defeated innumerable Jains, Buddhists, Mayavadis, atheists, logicians, and agnostics. With a hope of meeting Srila Vyasadeva himself, Madhvacharya walked up the Himalayas. Vyasadeva gave him a Shalagram Shila called Ashtamurti, approved his Bhagavad Gita commentary, and blessed Madhvacharya with deeper realizations of the Shastras. In Udupi, Madhvacharya installed a beautiful deity of Gopal, standing alone holding a cow-herding stick. This deity manifested from within a chunk of Gopi Chandan, sacred clay. He established 8 mutts, temples, to lovingly serve Udupi Krishna. The sannyasi leaders of each mutt worshipped the Krishna deity with a rigorous regimen of ceremonial ritual, punctuality, and impeccable personal conduct. Every Ekadashi they observed Nirjal. The Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya originates with the Madhvas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers thoroughly studied Madhva's works before compiling their philosophy. For the Satsandarbha, Sri Jiva Goswami drew heavily from Madhva's writings. Jiva Goswami found the Gaudiya philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva in Madhva's Bhagavat Parya. Sri Chaitanya himself visited Udupi, the seat of Madhva's sect. The Lord introduced Harinam Sankirtan into their sect. The Madhvas and Gaudiyas share many of the same philosophical points. Both consider it necessary to surrender to the lotus feet of the Guru Padashraya. In Sutra Bhashya, Madhvacharya cites the Brihat Tantra and Mahasamhita to show that a disciple may reject a bogus guru who proves to be useless. He may then accept another qualified self-realized person as his guru. In Premaya Ratnavali, Sri Baladeva Vibhushan summarized the 9 principles common to both Sri Chaitanya's and Madhva's teachings. In Vaishnav Siddhantamala, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered all Gaudiya Vaishnavas to carefully observe the 9 instructions of truth given by Sri Madhvacharya through our Guru Parampara. So here's a list of Sri Madhvacharya's 9 teachings. 1. Bhagavan, Sri Krishna alone is the supreme absolute truth, one without a second. 2. He is the object of knowledge in all the Vedas. 3. The universe is real, Satya. 4. The differences between Ishvara, God, Jiva, soul, and matter are real. 5. Jiva souls are by nature the servants of the Supreme Lord, Hari. 6. There are 2 categories of jivas, liberated and illusioned. 7. Liberation means attaining the lotus feet of Bhagavan Krishna. In other words, entering an eternal relationship of service to the Supreme Lord. 8. Pure devotional service to Krishna is the only way to attain this liberation. 9. The truth may be known by pratyaksha, direct perception, anuman, inference, or logic, shabda, spiritual sound, or Vedic authority. And it says, he says here, Madhvacharya, Sri Madhvacharya serves as Madhavi Gopi and Radha Govinda's eternal Vrndavan pleasure pastimes. Yes. Okay, let's see here. What was that, Jodhpur? You said something? The very, very beginning. Okay. In Premaya Ratnavali, Srila Baladeva Vibhushan summarized the 9 principles common to both Sri Chaitanya and Madhva's teachings. In Vedanta, Vaishnava Siddhantamala, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered all Gaudiya Vaishnavas to carefully observe the 9 instructions of truth given by Sri Madhvacharya through our Guru Parampara. Well, why don't you read it? You have it? Okay. You want to read it in the mic? I might have to do an edit here. Okay. All right, does anybody have any comments about Madhvacharya that they'd like to share, any other thing? If not, then we can move on to the... Yes?
I remember reading an account of his life. Turn it down a little bit. No, turn it down a little bit. He was very powerful, as mentioned here.
Yes.
And one time he was traveling with his disciples, and they came to a river. There was no boat, there was no bridge, and he said, "Let's keep walking." And they walked right into the river, under the river, and came out the other side and kept going. He imparted his power to them. There was another time when he ate 1,000 bananas in one sitting. And someone said, "How do you do that?" He said, "I have a little flame in there." And then there was another time when he ate 3,000. And all kinds of stories like that. That's stick out.
Yeah, we have here the Bengal tiger, right? His disciples attacked, and then Madhvacharya.
They say that, yes.
Go ahead.
That'll be yours, Maharaj. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur shares with us that he came to Navadvip Dham while he was doing parikrama. Like it says, he went up to the Himalayas. And he had darshan of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
And he said, well, let me glorify you. Let me preach your teachings. What am I doing with Dway? Yeah. And he said, no. You keep doing what you're doing. And in time, I'll manifest. But he meditated for the rest of his life and Lotus feet of Gauranga Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Navadvidam.
Yeah.
It's in Mahatmya, maybe somewhere else also. Oh, what was I going to say? No, but I thought it was... So, Prabhupada gives an example. If you try to bend a piece of bamboo or too fast, it'll snap. You have to bend it slowly. So there's an arc starting with, you've got the Buddhists, and then you have Sankaracharya says, no. There's actually something eternal. It's formless, but it's eternal. So he bends them a little bit. So each of the acharyas bends them a little further. Madhvacharya says, okay, there's something that's absolute, but it's two. Even in liberation, nityanam chaitanas chaitananam, that there's, okay, whatever, I don't want to take up too much time. So the point is that it's a gradual arc coming to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll talk, Chinta Beta Beta Tattva. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And then the other thing is just from Vayu, he's also an expansion of Hanuman, which explains, his strength. So that's all. Hare Krishna.
All right. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, titled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 29, Talks between Narada and King Prachanibarhi, on text 48. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Swam Lokam Na Vidus Te Vai Yatra Devo Janardana Ahur Dumra Dio Vedam Sakarmakam Atad Vidaha Samlokam Navidus Tevai Yatra Devo Janardanaha Ahor Durmradyo Vedam Sakarmakam Atadvida Samlokam Navidus Tevai Yatra Deva Janardana Ahor Durmradyo Vedam Sakarmakam etadvida Samlokam navidus tevai Yatra devo janardana Ahordum radyo vedam Sakarmakam etadvida Okay, word by word. Swam, own. Lokam, abode. Na, never. Viduhu, no. Te, such persons. Vai, certainly. Yatra, where. Devaha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Janardanaha, Krishna, or Vishnu. Ahu, speak. Dumnadiya, the less intelligent class of men. Vedam, the 4 Vedas. Sakarmakam, full of ritualistic ceremonies. Tatvidaha, persons who are not in knowledge. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned and search after other homes. Purport. Generally, people are not aware of their interest in life, to return home back to Godhead. People do not know about their real home in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there are many Vaikuntha planets, and the topmost planet is Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrndavan. Despite the so-called advancement of civilization, there is no information of the Vaikuntha Lokas, the spiritual planets. At the present moment, so-called advanced civilized men are trying to go to other planets, but they do not know that even if they go to the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, they have to come back again to this planet. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 16. Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartinojana Mam Upetya Tukonteya Punar Janmana Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. If one goes to the highest planetary system within this universe, he still has to return after the effects of pious activities are finished. Space vehicles may go very high in the sky, but as soon as their fuel is finished, they have to return to this earthly planet. All these activities are performed in illusion. The real attempt should now be to return home, back to Godhead. The process is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Yanti mad yaji yajino pimam. Those who engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead return home, back to Godhead. Human life is very valuable, and one should not waste it in vain exploration of other planets. One should be intelligent enough to return to Godhead. One should be interested in information about the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, and in particular the planet known as Goloka Vrndavan, and should learn the art of going there by the simple method of devotional service, beginning with hearing Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. This is also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 3, Text 51. Kalir dosha nide rajan asti heko mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha parambrajet. One can go to the supreme planet, Parambrajet, simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. This is especially meant for the people of this age, Kalir dosha nide. It is the special advantage of this age that simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can become purified of all material contamination and return home, back to Godhead. There is no doubt about this. Om Ganatipidandasya Gananjana Shalaka Chakshulam Maditamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Garitavachalam Pangam Lange Teganim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Diditaranam Bancha Kapatribishta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Can I read the translation again? Those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned in search after other homes. So the common say a common principle amongst spiritual seekers or people looking for God, or however you want to say that, is that they're looking for a higher experience. They're looking for transcendental reality. They're looking for ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy, and we could say that many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples also fell into that category when they were first joining the Hare Krishna movement. I'm thinking about Govinda Dasi. She was once sitting with Prabhupada. I'm not sure if it was in Hawaii or San Francisco. Something. Anyway, she was sitting with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was in his rocking chair, and he was chanting japa. And she was there, sitting on the floor, like a disciple does. She was sitting there. She was also chanting japa, and then somehow or other, there's a conversation sparked, and she was telling Prabhupada how that she was planning to go to, I think it was take a tour of the mountains in the Nepal. So that's what she was telling Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada was chanting, and then he looked at her, looked into her eyes, and he said, "Oh, I could take you much higher than the mountains of Nepal, you know." And at that time, Govinda Dasi, she relates that at that time she felt this like wave of spiritual ecstasy or transcend, this wave of bliss, Krishna consciousness, just flooded her consciousness, and she had that amazing experience with Prabhupada there. So here it's talking, we could go to so many higher planets, but the verse is talking about going to the spiritual Vaikuntha Loka. Specifically, it's mentioned Goloka Vrndavan. Prabhupada's mentioned the purport. It's important that Prabhupada, he was able to, you could say, impart or make available that particular happiness, that spiritual happiness, to Govinda Dasi and so many others. So many wonderful real life stories where Prabhupada would arrive somewhere, and devotees would be completely enlivened, to say the least. So, but the followers of Srila Prabhupada, disciples, grand disciples, and so on, we also have to be able to impart some type of bliss, some type of spiritual happiness in the persons we're trying to help, the persons we're trying to preach to, trying to help come along. And someone may say, well, who am I to really do that? One devotee, Nityananda Prabhu's appearance day is coming up. We're all very happy about that. But one devotee, he would tell me years ago, he said, oh yeah, people think, God is dead, and people think God is, old and boring and all that. And he said, but he's not that at all. he said, and he was talking about Nityananda Prabhu, transcendental madman. Chaitanya Bhagava and Chaitanya Charitamrita is described. Completely ecstatic in love of Krishna. So this devotee was telling me, he said, we have to display to people how ecstatic it is to be a devotee, how wonderful it is to be Krishna conscious. So yeah, that's a challenge, but that's our duty. And we may say, well, who am I? I'm not some who. But we say, okay, mukam, right? Vachalam pangam langa tegidim, that a blind person could see, a lame person could cross over the mountains, a dumb person could speak eloquently, right? So, by the mercy of the spiritual master, who is connected to the disciplic succession, connected to Krishna. So, by their mercy, we can. Only by their mercy. On our own, yeah, can't. Impossible. But by their mercy, we can. And part of that is, flooding our consciousness with the messages of Krishna, in terms of hearing, right? Like Prabhupada says, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. So here there's a wonderful description in the Nectar Devotion, because we have descriptions of the spiritual world found within the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto and other places. And then we hear that and accept that Krishna, he descended to this material world and displayed his pastimes in Vrndavan, and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Mayapur. So I'll just read, this is from the Nectar Devotion chapter, which is entitled Expressions of Love for Krishna, and it is under the section called Intense Emotion. So there's Prabhupada writing here. So you can count. All right. Emotion is caused by something very dear, by something very detestable, by fire, by strong wind, by strong rainfall, by some natural disturbance, by the sight of a big elephant, or by the sight of an enemy. When there is emotion caused by seeing something very dear, one can speak very swiftly and use kind words. When there is emotion caused by seeing something detestable, one cries very loudly. When there is emotion caused by seeing fire, one tries to flee. There may also be trembling of the body, closing of the eyes, and tears in the eyes. When one becomes emotional on account of a strong wind, one tries to run very swiftly and rub his eyes. When one is emotional because of rainfall, one takes an umbrella. When there is tension in his body, period. When there is emotion due to a sudden disturbance, one's face becomes discolored. One becomes struck with wonder. And when there is trembling of the body, If there is emotion from seeing an elephant, one may jump and show various signs of fear. And sometimes one may keep looking behind him. When there is emotion due to the presence of an enemy, one looks for a fatal weapon and tries to escape. All right, so here, when Krishna returned from the forest of Vrndavan, Mother Yashoda was so emotional from seeing her son that milk began to flow from her breast. This is an instance of emotion caused by seeing a dear object. In the 10th canto, 23rd chapter, verse 18 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami informs Maharaj Parikshit, "My dear king, the wives of the Brahmins were usually very much attached to the glorification of Krishna, and they were always anxious to get an opportunity to see him. Because of this, when they heard that Krishna was nearby, they became very anxious to see him and immediately left their homes. This is an instance of emotional activity caused by the presence of someone very dear. When Putana, the demoniac witch, was struck down and killed by Krishna, Mother Yashoda was struck with wonder and began to cry emotionally. Oh, what is this? What is this? When she saw that her dear baby Krishna was playing on the chest of the dead demoniac woman, Mother Yashoda, at a loss what to do, began to walk this way and that. This is an instance of being emotional on account of seeing something ghastly. When Krishna uprooted the 2 Arjun trees and Yashoda heard the sound of the trees crashing down, she became overcome with emotion and simply stared upward, being too bewildered to know what else to do. This is an instance of being emotional from hearing a tumultuous sound. When there was a forest fire in Vrndavan, all the cowherd men assembled together and desperately appealed to Krishna for protection. This is an instance of emotion caused by fire. The whirlwind demon, known as Trinavarta, once carried Krishna off from the ground and blew him around, along with some very big trees. At that time, Mother Yashoda could not see her son, and she was so disturbed that she began to walk this way and that. This is an instance of emotion caused by severe wind. In the 10th canto, 25th chapter, verse 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a description of Indra's causing severe torrents of rain at Vrndavan. All the cows and cowherd boys became so afflicted by the wind and cold that they all gathered together to take shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. This is an instance of emotion caused by severe rainfall. There were severe torrents of hail when Krishna was staying in the forest of Vrndavan, and the elderly persons bade him, "Krishna, don't you move now. Even persons who are stronger and older than you cannot move, and you are just a little boy, so please stay still." This is an instance of emotion caused by heavy hailing. When Krishna was chastising Kaliya in the poisonous water of the Yamuna, Mother Yashoda began to speak emotionally. "Oh, see how the earth appears to be trembling. There appears to be an earth tremor, and in the sky meteors are flying here and there. My dear son has entered into the poisonous water of the Yamuna. What shall I do now?" This is an instance of emotion resulting from a natural disturbance. In the arena of Kamsa, when Krishna was attacked by big elephants, all of the ladies present began to address him in this way: "My dear boy, please leave this place immediately. Please leave this place immediately. Don't you see the big elephants coming to attack you? Your innocent gazing upon them is causing us too much perturbation." Krishna then told Mother Yashoda, "My dear mother, don't be perturbed by the appearance of the elephants and horses that are so forcibly coming and raising dust, causing blindness to these lotus-eyed women. Let even the Keshi demon come before me. My arms will still be adequate for victory, so please don't be perturbed." All right, so we just have almost finished here. In the Lalita Madhava, a friend tells Mother Yashoda how wonderful it is that when the Shankachuta demon, as vast and strong as a great hill, attacked your Cupid-like beautiful son, there was no one present in Vrndavan to help, and yet the demon was killed by your little son. It appears to be due to the result of severe penances and austerities in your past lives that your son was saved in this way. In the same Lalita Madhava, there is an account of Krishna's kidnapping Rukmini at her royal marriage ceremony. It's a great chapter in the Krishna book. At that time, all the princes present began to converse among themselves, saying, "We have our elephants, horses, chariots, bows, arrows, and swords, so why should we be afraid of Krishna? Let us attack him. He is nothing but a lusty cowherd boy. He cannot take away the princess in this way. Let us all attack him." This is an instance of emotion caused by the presence of enemies. Srila Rupa Goswami is trying to prove by the above examples that in relationship with Krishna, there is no question of impersonalism. All personal activities are there in relationship with Krishna. So, how many times did Prabhupada use the word emotion or emotional there? 23 times. 23 times and just, about maybe 2.5 pages, emotional. And he says that, that in relation with Krishna, there's no question of impersonalism. So, there is transcendental emotions in relation to Krishna, in relation to his devotees, and that's what we're trying to develop. We're trying to reconnect with Krishna and the devotees on that level, and the spiritual master. And it's in many ways, it's a hard lesson to learn. Of course, it doesn't have to be, but in many cases it is for people, and in that the nature of a person, in this world, in material existence, is like I'm just saying about Dravida Prabhu's poetry, fallen redemption of the soul, and explaining how the soul, proud and puffed up, doesn't want anything to do with God, right? And then eventually he meets a devotee and engages in the process of devotional service, and returns back to Krishna. Maybe we'll ask him to channel later, but there's certain you could say levels of pride that are there. Like I'm thinking of in the early days in San Francisco, Prabhupada had a disciple, and Prabhupada was giving a talk, and he was actually just getting ready to go back to India because his health. So he was going back to India. And then Prabhupada was speaking to the devotees, and one of Prabhupada's disciples, he walks in, and he is crying, he's practically crawling to Prabhupada, and then he puts his lap on puts his head on Prabhupada's lap, and Prabhupada is, massaging his hair and his head, and he's saying, "What's wrong, my boy? What's wrong? Why are you crying?" And then the disciple, in essence, says that I want to go to God directly. I want to go to Krishna directly. Means I don't want a guru, I don't want a spiritual master, I want to go directly. And so Prabhupada's encouraged him, no, just stay with us, and be happy and practice Krishna consciousness, and then that goes on. It's quite dramatic. All the devotees are just watching this, and then this disciple, he stands up and he walks out and he leaves. And then Satsrup Das Goswami in the Leela Mriti says, that's like his exit of Krishna consciousness. So this idea, it's actually a very common idea nowadays that people have. And it's not that necessarily that those who are coming to the Krishna conscious movement are free from that idea that, okay, I'll just go to God directly. In many Christian groups, they have this idea, and many other religions, they have this idea. So, but that's not our philosophy. That's not our philosophy. We don't approach Krishna directly. So that pride has to be overcome. That okay, I'm going to approach God directly. No. So that's one. Or first of all, the pride that I don't want anything to do with God. That has to be overcome, and then the pride that I don't want to have a guru, right? That has to be overcome. But then there's a level, okay, it's just me and my guru. It's just my guru and myself, It's also a certain pride. Or then it's just myself myself and my guru and the senior devotees and the Shiksha gurus. Just them. It's a certain pride. Or you get past that, it's who? I guess it's starting to look a little better that time. My guru and the Shiksha gurus and senior devotees and the other devotees. Right? It's looking good. But also, there's a whole, world packed full of conditioned souls. Says, I don't want to deal with those guys, dirty, mlechas, whatever the Bhagavatam says, right? Savidvado hosaka, right? Hogs, dogs, I don't want anything to do with them. So we also have to, be willing to deal with them too. So, and this is the path chalked out in the Bhagavatam and by Srila Prabhupada, that we have to accept all of the devotees, the guru and the Shiksha gurus and the devotees and everyone as personalities that are we're meant to serve. And all along chanting Hare Krishna, which is it says there's so many bad qualities. Here at the last verse it says cleared, right? Ocean of bad qualities. It cannot be measured. But the one good quality is simply by chanting the holy names one could become free and return to the spiritual world. So, anyways, that's... Does anybody have any questions or... Yes. Comments? Questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. So here's my question. You said in the beginning of class, you gave the example of Govinda Dasi feeling this wave of ecstasy from Srila Prabhupada. And then you were saying that obviously we're not Srila Prabhupada, but we need to carry on that and they have to feel something from us. So are you talking about like Ramakrishna by electrical current, or we touch them on the head with a peacock feather and they're going to, all their chakras are going to open? Well, what is this ecstasy that we're supposed to be able to transmit?
All right, thank you. Yeah, Prabhupada said that was... in the Bhagavatam, there's a purport. Prabhupada said there's a guru and a disciple, and the guru, I don't know what he said, he touched his shoulder or something. I'm transferring all my knowledge to you. And he says, now I have no knowledge. And Prabhupada, that's bogus. Bogus. So, but that's not spiritual life, because spiritual life, more you give, the more you get. So that, anyways, didn't accept that. So yeah, we don't, not like that, but means by following in the footsteps of our predecessor acharyas, by following the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, founder acharya of the of ISKCON, and by sincerely engaging ourselves in, as sincere as we can and as serious as we can, engaging ourselves in the process of devotional service, then naturally our preaching or teaching or trying to help people will have effect. And it's not, a lot of the times like so many times Prabhupada would describe specifically the initiating spiritual master. Prabhupada would describe him in such humble ways. He's a peon. He's delivering the message. Because sometimes whatever the disciples, it's like some magical, mystical, but it's very clear and straightforward. And the spiritual master, he repeats the message of the disciplic succession and follows and teaches the disciple how to make advancement, progress in spiritual life. But yeah, part of that naturally, the follower of Prabhupada, because they're following Prabhupada and because they're engaged sincerely and seriously in the process of devotional service, naturally they'll be relishing some of the happiness of Krishna consciousness, and therefore people will see that and think, oh, this person's happy, blissful, and in Krishna consciousness, so I associate with them. Just like we associate with Krishna, we associate with Srila Prabhupada, we feel something. Or just like I'm thinking about Vaisheshika Prabhu. He says that book distribution should be like a natural overflow of the bliss we're feeling, happiness in Krishna consciousness, due to our serious practice of it. So we're seriously practicing, and then it's overflow, so then we go out and we try to distribute. So anyways, I hope that, I don't know, maybe you want to add. Okay. And yeah, we shouldn't see it as like we shouldn't be like bliss hounds or something. I'm looking for the bliss, and because spiritual life means it's sacrifice. It's sacrifice, and it's giving up so many things that we may want to do or that we can do. But yeah, the higher taste, param dushva navartate. So yeah. Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another perspective is just the one word, qualities. We sincerely follow the process of Krishna consciousness, we develop qualities or reawaken qualities that nobody else has. And that's self-evident. People see that.
Yeah.
And they want to be the same way. They want those same qualities. So that's another side.
Can I share? My first temple president, Laguna Beach, Durlab, who I can never repay, He was a senior devotee. He was 29 years old. He'd been initiated. He'd been in Krishna consciousness. He'd been in Krishna consciousness a year and a half. He'd just gotten Brahman initiation, so we were very respectful to him, you know. And we were on Harinam one day, downtown Laguna Beach, and I'll never forget it. And this station wagon, beat-up station wagon with a bunch of hippies in it, long-haired hippies. This, you know, just like you can imagine, pot smoke blowing out the back, you know. And they went past the Harinam party. Then they backed up. This guy got out of the car, and didn't know what was, and he just whacked Durlab it. Whack, you know, jumped in the car, and they sped off. And, you know, we didn't have time to react, and here was our temple president. Durlab's rubbing his face. He said, "Prabhus, I have a lot of bad karma to deal with." I was so impressed that he wasn't angry, he wasn't upset, he wasn't cursed, he didn't know, and he just took it that this is a token reaction for something. I said, this person, you know, he's got some real, I was so impressed. So just like, you know, qualities that you don't see in others. That's, I just amplified off your point, you know? And there's so many like
I think
that.
you tell that one of where you went on, I don't know if you were going to the different places and distributing incense. And the brakes went out or something like that. I don't know.
No, I'll just be quick, just because you asked. Again, with Durlab, the way the temple was supported was that we sold incense, and you had to go in these head shops, you know, and people are blowing pot, and, you know, there was just the whole scene going on there, you know. And and he sold it on the weekend. So Durlab, and I was 17 years old. So Durlab said, "Why don't you come with me, and you can read Bhagavatam?" So all we had was the 3-volume first canto, you know. And I would sit. We didn't have a seat. It was just a milk crate, you know, tied onto the whole inside of the van was ripped out. And so he would go into the shop, and then he would come back, and I would read first canto Bhagavatam with him over and over again. It was so, and you know, I'd ask questions. I was saved by that man. But the thing is, the van was so beat up that the driver's side door was held on by rope. You know, that's how he was just like, it was held on by rope, and he was just, and he was in a hurry. You know, we had a whole route, and he wanted, so he parked. We're on Coast Highway. He opened the door, and he was spinning out to get out, and this Coca-Cola truck or a beer truck, one of those big trucks, came along. Wham! Just whacked off the door. The door came right off. Missed Durlab by about an inch, you know, and he fell back into his seat. And he went, "Pahi pahi mahayogin deva deva jagat pate nanyam tvarabhyam pasye yatra mitra parasparam." You know, that Uttara chants when the Brahmastra is coming after the child within her womb. You know, I called for my mother. I didn't, you know, I was like, zing! And I thought, geez, this man is, you know. So again, just like you say, it just came out. It was in him, like Raj was saying and like you were saying, because it was in there, it came out. And I was so impressed.
Yeah.
There's so many examples. What does Durlaba mean again? There. Hard to get. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question actually that was kind of hanging over from a previous class, maybe by Vijay or something. But first, I was going to say that I thought it was kind of nice how the verse, and actually the verses, past few verses, were about how it's unintelligent to go to the demigods, seeking things from the demigods. And then this verse was about how, of course, you shouldn't go up to the demigods or pray to the demigods for material things, specifically for material things. That's not really where your benefit lies. And then you went into how benefit, transcendental bliss actually, and then that comes from meeting those who've experienced that. And you need the mercy of those who've experienced that, or those who are dear to, and then you went through how not just dear to Krishna, but then also dear to other spiritual master, but then so many devotees. So that was nice, because generally when I think about when I've read things about the demigods, even in Bhagavad Gita, and often when I think about the demigods, it's kind of, it can easily kind of be in a kind of dismissive way, or kind of a disrespectful way. Dismissive or disrespectful, even though, of course, the demigods they're the devotees. And actually, I was thinking there was some talk by Bhakti Swami, and he was going through so many features of, like, he was saying, like, Vedic etiquette, so that you don't offend even, like, the sun and the moon in different ways, you know,
Yeah.
which generally in the West you're completely oblivious to. And he was saying ultimately, we want to please Krishna, but all these things make a difference, you know. Also, you know, offending the demigods here and there, you know, you should try not to. If you know, you should try not to. So I was thinking that was because the point of the class is that not just pleasing Krishna, not just even pleasing spiritual master, all the devotees, also being respectful to the demigods also is there. But then a question which I had previously is, how was it? That I think it was Vijay's class, maybe you can remember if this was you or Namaste Prabhu, but saying how when going to India, it's difficult to preach Krishna consciousness in India.
Yeah.
Because there are all these people who they're attached to Ganesh or they're attached to Indra or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult for them to, you know, to give them spiritual knowledge because they're attached to this person, that person. And then, but then I think in the same class then it was said how, of course, it was mentioned how in America, you know, it was kind of easier, but then saying that they're also, you know, Christians, but they're nice Christians, you know, and you just say that, well, you know, you're attached to Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is a great devotee, you know, you know, so just follow Jesus Christ, be a good Christian, and then, you know, you're in good hands.
Yeah.
But you could say that those who worship Jesus are not so unlike those who worship Ganesh generally, because they worship Jesus often for material benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And if we accept that Jesus Christ is, you know, Son of God and a dear devotee of God, just like Ganesh, then people's worship of Jesus in the U.S. isn't so different from people's worship of Ganesh or Indra or even Durga in India. Yeah. So I'm saying it's pretty similar. They're maybe praying for material things.
So you're saying how is it different?
Yeah, because generally when I think of nice Christians, my immediate response, oh, well, you're a nice Christian, what a relief, you know.
Yeah.
But then I meet someone who's like attached to worshiping Hanuman in a materialistic way. It's like, oh, come on, give it up.
I mean, a lot of the times, the problem is that with the demigod worshippers is that they stop there, and there's no sense that, okay, Ganesh is connecting me to Krishna. You know, there's no sense like that. At least generally speaking, they think okay, or they think that all the gods are the same. You know, Ganesh, Shiva, they're all the same. You know, Panchopasana, who worship different gods for different reasons. But yeah, there's no conception. Oh, but with the Christians, with Jesus, they say, okay, I'm worshiping for material benefit, maybe, possibly, right? Different Christians, they may be worshiping for pure benefits, but they're pure motives. But they have this conception that, okay, Jesus is linking me with God. At least there's a conception like that. Now, of course, there's all different types of Christians. Some say that, okay, well, God and Jesus are one, and, you know, different things like that. So that's there. But then again, there's the whole thing with demigod worshippers and then Jesus worshippers is that the demigod worshippers, you know, they're kind of in the Vedic fold to some degree, you could say, and it depends on. But they may, due to their piety, their their upbringing, they may be able to take to Krishna consciousness easier, maybe. Whereas in some cases, it's difficult, you know, for the Christians to take to Krishna consciousness. Now, of course, Prabhupada would say, if you're a Christian, be a good Christian. Just don't eat meat, chant the holy names of God, and that's fine. You know, we're not trying to. So, but then again, Prabhupada would say different things like, Tamal Krishna Goswami asked Prabhupada, what happens to the sincere Christians? I remember hearing this in a talk. And he said, the sincere Christians, Prabhupada said, the sincere Christians, they join the Hare Krishna movement. He said, all of you, you're coming from Christian backgrounds. And So anyways, that's...
And then if some people, because some they accept Jesus, you could say some accept Jesus as a link to God, but largely they accept Jesus as God, which just like many Hindus may accept Shiva as God.
Some people do, but still there's people who accept, as far as I understand, the Catholics, they accept...
Jesus is not God, only Son of God?
As far as,
Okay.
But nowadays there's many Christians, you meet them and they say Jesus and God, they're one. It's more common, which is kind could say it could be seen as a Chintu Beta Beta thing, one and different, the Son and the Father, but they don't see it like this, pretty much. But it's could be a bit of a Mayavad, If Jesus says, if right in the Bible it says, I'm sitting on the right hand of God, there's so many cases like that. Or Jesus is on the cross and he's praying, to God, please forgive them. They're in ignorance. Please forgive them. Okay, well, who's he praying? So, anyways, I think it's a comment or question, or not some comment probably.
You covered a lot of good points in that. Thank you, Balaram. One point that hasn't been said in these 3 verses about demigod worship, you lightly touched on it, that when asked who's better, the Christians or the demigod worship, Prabhupada answered the devotee that actually the demigod worshippers, because they're involved in the Vedic culture, and if they're not contaminated or bewildered by impersonalism, they will understand that God is a person. And I was brought up as a Christian, and I know that even though I conceived of God as my Father, because of impersonalism, I had no conception of who God was.
Yeah.
That was the extent of it, and that's impersonalism, which he came to the West to destroy this ignorance.
Yeah.
So, if you take impersonalism out of the thing, they're set up for being, this close, because all the yagyas where you worship demigods, Vishnu's always mentioned.
Yeah.
There's a connection. It's gradual, but there's a connection.
Yeah, just like, just last thing, but here, just like within America, there's a lot of people coming from India. And therefore, in many big cities, practically all big cities of America, there's many people from India. And naturally, they want to come to the Hare Krishna temple, a lot of them. So we're not obviously against that. We want them to come. Because sometimes there's this idea that, ISKCON in America, is like, kind of Hinduization of ISKCON or something. But, we want them to come. And many of, they have many elements, such as piety and, some sattva there, in which they could take to Krishna consciousness. We try to help them, become initiated and, educated in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But of course, alongside with that, we want to get, locally born, everyone. Yeah, everyone. So, everyone. Yes, everyone. So don't neglect the Americans. Don't neglect the. All right, last.
Yeah, so regarding this point, I was remembering in Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya's Leela, that intervention of devotee, as Dravida Prabhu says, is very the link where you have even like some scholars who were trying to defeat Lord Chaitanya, and because in their dreams Lord Saraswati comes and tells that, hey, you are actually it is about how you can connect demigod worshippers to Krishna.
All right. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.